Thailand is so different from back home. The cultural chasm is vast. Whether you're visiting here for the first time, or you've been here many times, or you live here, there is so much to learn. I've lived here 19 months and I am learning every single day. There's at least 5 or 6 super important things worth talking about today. And they're points that no one has really spoken about on YouTube. And no one wants to get jammed up on their holiday. No one wants to pay more than they should. And ultimately, you want to be cognizant of the culture around you, and you want to be showing the people, the locals around you, the proper respect. Failing to do that, well, we'll talk about that. We ought to talk about the easy ones first. So let's start with cultural and dining etiquette. Of course, Thai food is known for its bold flavors, combining sweet, sour, salty, and spicy elements. And you should know that meals are often shared family style. In the West, meals can be more individualistic, usually with individual servings, and the emphasis may be on presentation or gourmet experience rather than communal eating. I want you to imagine being at home in the West and dragging out a barbecue into the center of your lounge room, placing it on the floor, and then you and your friends and family all sitting around it on the ground. Imagine it with no tables, no chairs, just a mat on the tiles, very little crockery. Everyone's just sharing from the same platter. Sitting down on the ground, shoes off like this. Don't forget that feet are very not appreciated here. So especially when one's sitting down for a meal, not only do the shoes need to be far away, but you should really be aware of where your feet are pointing. If your feet are overtly pointing towards a Thai person, subtly, they're going to be quite uncomfortable. Traveling to Thailand as a first timer, you may think, well, this doesn't apply to me because I'm going to be staying in a resort. The only Thai people I'll be interacting with will be the waiters and the waitresses and the concierge. Oh, no. These cultural expectations apply in a cafe setting or a restaurant setting or a hotel or resort setting as well. How are you going with all this? Because we're going to get down into the nitty-gritty very shortly. The next point we need to talk about is family values. And if you have any notion of having any real interaction with Thai people while you're here, at some point this phenomena, this cultural norm, this societal, social norm is going to come to a head, and at some point you're going to have to face this head on. Family life in Thailand is super different to it is in the West, with multiple generations often living together, sometimes for their whole lives. Where this differs so much from the West is that individualism isn't valued as highly here. What usually comes before that is commitment to family, particularly your elders. I think back to all those times I visited Ubon Ratchathani in the far northeast of Thailand, in Isan, where my ex-girlfriend's family lived together. Her mother and her grandmother lived side by side, and next to them was the auntie and uncle. And on the other side was the second uncle, auntie removed. And between these 4 or 5 households, which bordered each other, initially it was very hard for me to be able to tell which kids came from which house and which auntie belonged to which husband, because there was so much intermingling, familiar intermingling. You've got that right, but how is it so different from the West? Well, the notion of putting your grandparents into a retirement village is absolutely never going to happen. If you are a part of that family, except in very rare cases, you will remain connected to that family, that extended family, whether you have a positive relationship or not. Grandma could theoretically be toxic AF. But Thai people, they will still support grandma and grandpa. They will still co-live with them. How is any of this relevant to you as a Westerner being here or visiting here? Well, that leads us on to point number 3, and that is if you're considering having any kind of relationship with a Thai lady. Just got one new subscriber. I convinced Da to follow, like.
Follow him. Now him 18 TV បាសយណៃចង់ហ៊ានណាស់ค่ะ Wow, look at it. I still look.
Engagement ring.
Yes.
Let's skip over this point very briefly because we don't want this video to be all about girls, right? But in a nutshell, if a Westerner shacks up with a Thai lady, you as the Westerner really needs to adopt that mentality regarding her family. I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about mindset, familial mindset. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about Thai's attitude to time. Now, any expat that spent any time here will tell you that they've had their own personal experience dealing with Thai people's attitude towards time, and I'm talking about time as in hours on a clock. Generally, Thai people have a much more relaxed attitude towards this. Sooner or later, you'll find that the emphasis is much more about valuing flexibility and social interactions rather than punctuality. You will have heard that phrase, Thai time, which refers to events starting perhaps later than they were scheduled. Now, even for the traveller who is arriving in Thailand for the first time in their life, on day one, he or she should really try and embody this attitude towards Thai time. From the moment you step out of the airport gates of Phuket or Suvarnabhumi Airport in Bangkok, to walking out to the taxi or Bolt or Grab stand or waiting for the bus, when arriving in Thailand, a significant and active divergence from what you're used to back home is it will pay dividends. One push. Go, lao. It's a pretty sizable bike. I feel like the speed at which it needs to be pushed to jumpstart it needs to be, hey, he got it. Now, where were we? Kreng-jai, AKA respect. This is not a Christian country. This is not a new country like Australia or the US. That's really only been around for 300 odd years. Elements of Thai culture have been around for thousands of years. And how do you think they've managed to stay neutral through multiple world wars? 2 ways, diplomacy and respect. Kreng-jai is a cultural practice of showing respect and avoiding confrontation where possible. What can you hear? I can hear the cars going past. I can hear a motorcycle coming. I can hear some Russians having fun in the resort next door. I can hear a couple of birds. There's one thing that you will not hear very often at all here, and that is the beep beep, the angry toot of a car horn. Almost never. In Australia, there's certainly less emphasis on respect for authority of rule and government and laws and police. For better or worse, when visiting the Kingdom of Thailand, that shit really ain't gonna fly here.
What a beautiful animal. Shazza. It's a kangaroo. Shazza.
Westerners causing a nuisance of themselves in tourist towns or in regional areas or in the heart of Bangkok. It really does tourism no favours. Being overtly loud, being confrontational over a couple of baht with a taxi driver or in a cafe or a restaurant, or so poignantly, having road rage and using your horn because you're frustrated is incredibly frowned upon in the Thai culture. And it highlights how deeply ingrained this cultural expectation of showing respect really is. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you later.
I've been down so long that my mind can't get no rest.